wonderful Wednesday. Paul Kiker is here the first Wednesday of the month. Did y'all know that? This is the first Wednesday of the month, not to be confused with yesterday, which was April Fool's Day. And if you watch the news, there's a lot of fools out there.
There is a lot of
There's a lot of fools out there. I don't want to give this person any airtime, so I'm not going to say her name. But there's a certain woman with a dark tan, real dark tan, in Congress that should be deported. I don't care where they send her. I don't care what they do. But when you speak for violence in our country,
yes,
you have no business in our country. I'm sorry. It's just like when they were burning Milwaukee down and they were doing all the things they did, and Governor Tim Walz's wife opens the window and goes, I want to take it all in. Those people don't need to be Americans. They don't need to be here in our country. They don't need to be creating havoc. They need to be gone, G-O-N-E, gone. Still not going to say her name, but everybody knows who I'm talking about. She was probably, I will say this, she reminds me of you ever been to Bankhead Highway in Atlanta?
I have.
They have a lot of bars on Bankhead Highway in Atlanta. She reminds me of pole dancer in Bankhead Highway in Atlanta. So she's in Congress now. Now that should scare everybody out there. If you look at the people in Congress, and I did this, I said, Siri, show me Joe Biden's cabinet. You got the picture. Siri, show me President Trump's cabinet. And you're going, here.
Yeah.
And I was like, so I started looking at some of these people who were elected to Congress during the term of the Biden administration. And there's some embarrassments in Congress.
Yeah, it's sad.
It is very sad, and I just laughed about it, and I thought, don't you want to go to where they live and knock on doors and say, did you vote for her? Are you the reason she's there? Are you the reason she's saying burn this, destroy this, violence for this, shoot them in the head? I mean, they're making some statements that, to me, ought to be a chargeable offense.
Well, if we made that statement about someone, we would be charged with terroristic threats.
$25,000 bond. I've done it. I know the routine.
I learned something new today.
Yeah, $25,000 bond for telling the drug dealer I was going to blow his brains out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, $25,000 bond. Mm-hmm.
That was worth the $25,000.
It was worth it.
That was worth the charge.
And as I think about that, I'm thinking I wish I'd had a loaded gun that day. I don't even own a gun. But I wish I'd had one that day, because he had the nerve, the audacity to go take a warrant out for me. He'd been sneaking drugs into our home and delivering them to my 13-year-old daughter. And I found out about it. And I saw him cross the road, and I confronted him. And next thing I knew, Jerky was at the door, knocking on the door, saying, Lord, I hate to do this, but I've got to. And I looked, I said, what is this?
Yeah.
It's because I threatened a drug dealer. I didn't have a gun, I didn't have a baseball bat, but I was pretty mouthy.
Right.
And I made him a promise, if he brought drugs to my house again, he'd meet Jesus a lot sooner than he thought. But it's crazy, because these people, I was held accountable for what I said.
Right.
And I was actually went over there, and they were going to fingerprint me and everything, and then they said, look, this warrant should never have been issued. And so they canceled it all and said, okay, we're sorry that this went this far. But today, we are allowing on the news every day this person who ought to be a pole dancer in Bankhead Highway to stand up there and threaten America and to say, burn those cars, burn those businesses, shoot up those huge dealerships. Mm-hmm. They're allowing that to happen every day.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that we're noticing is the courts have been taken over by,
how embarrassing.
by people who don't love justice.
How embarrassing.
And they work the letter of the law. I was reading in Matthew today, it was talking about the Pharisees, and they're Pharisaical. I think the intellectual elites, the PhDs, the doctors, not all, but trust the science is all Pharisaical in nature. Whitewashed on the outside and wretched and dirty on the inside. Now, we all are to an extent, right? But I mean, that's what's in the leadership of our institution. And we ended up here with two ways.
Scary.
One, good men and women haven't made the sacrifices to step into leadership. Two, a corrupt government.
Oh man, stuff is coming out that you're going.
Yeah, I mean,
oh my
the last
gosh.
administration allowed 2.1 million illegal immigrants to get Social Security numbers. We found out that USAID was we think it's USAID, it's not, but was funneling money into George Soros's campaign. And George Soros,
bunches of it.
He is an enemy to our country. And why we haven't put him on the terrorist list, I don't understand
it.
But he's funneled that back into a lot of these campaigns for the destruction of our country.
Do you know how much it costs the Democrats to beat a Republican judge in Wisconsin by only 10%? But we know that that area is known as either blue or purple, has been forever and ever and ever. They believe in abortion. They believe in abortion up to a late term. They believe in things that we don't believe in, and I know y'all well enough know you don't believe in the stuff that they're throwing out at us. They spent more than has ever been spent on a campaign, and this was a judge's race. Now think about, they're buying that judgeship.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, they didn't say, well, we just like her so much better. No, it's what she's going to vote for.
Well, and most of your voters are uninformed.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
So
they see one commercial that says, I like her. She's sweet. No, she's not.
No. And they've been, Obama repealed the law to limit the ability of the American people, the government, to use propaganda against the American people, okay, without their knowledge. So there's been all of these propaganda campaigns that have taken place for some time, and people are influenced by that. Because,
and fall for it.
Most people are busy. Most people don't know who to trust. Most people don't enjoy reading to do the research. They'd rather watch the TV and they get an ad and they hear a clip, You've got both sides are just as guilty, but you've got one side that lies more through their campaigns than what the other side does. And it's for a reason. You should have the person that wins the judgeship that is the most honest. Justice is supposed to be blind and deaf, right?
It is not.
Or blind, excuse me, not deaf, because you got to hear, but blind. And a judge should not have agendas that are politically motivated. It should be, what is the evidence? What is the truth? We hire somebody based on wisdom, and we hire somebody based on a record of doing what is right regardless.
Right.
But what's taken place is most people don't realize this. There is capital and there's labor, okay? So for you listeners out there, capital is money, capital is your monopolies, capital is Walmart, capital is Apple, capital is these very wealthy individuals. So Warren Buffett, as good of an investor as he is and seems to be like a good grandfather, right, is capital. So the Democrats used to be for labor, but all of the policies of the last administration were at the expense of labor. Now, we're labor. To an extent, I would be in capital because I'm in the capital markets. But your plumbers, your electricians, your servers, your waiters, your attorneys are actually your CPAs. They're labor. So it's people that actually work for a living. Capital is your big businesses. And all of these policies have been to
Amazon would be capital.
Amazon
capital. Is like big capital.
So it's the decisions have been at the expense of labor for the benefit of capital, and that's what they're trying to protect. They're trying to protect these monopolies. They're trying to tear our country down, because if they can have us as a populace fighting each other, then they're continuing to rake in their coffers at our expense. They can ship our jobs overseas, right? So when you grew up in this area, there was manufacturing here.
Oh,
right?
Levi, Pickens Footwear. I think about all the meals, all the faces, all the precious people who walked in our restaurant every day, who ate a meat and 3 vegetables for $3.85, including your tea, because they worked in a plant. They worked at Pickens Footwear, or they worked at H.D. Lee. And then Levi, when Levi went to Mexico, buy you a pair of Levi's. They are not what they used to be.
No.
If we could bring manufacturing back here, do you know what a pair of good, real, old, vintage Levi's are worth?
No,
I mean, they're bringing tons of dollars on the internet.
Really?
Tons of dollars. Do you know why? 50 years ago, when Levi's were made, they were good. They were the best blue jeans ever.
High quality.
The best blue jeans ever. We don't have that anymore. Go get you a pair of Levi's and wear them about a year and go, oh my gosh, what is happening to these?
That's right.
Totally different. Totally
That's right.
different. Yeah.
So that's the problem that we have right now, and where I was going with that is if you have capital or if you have resources behind you, you're above the law, right? I mean, you are literally above the law because the courts are serving the wealthiest, and they're held to a different standard than what the average individual is. You go to jail for terroristic threats against a
drug dealer.
Against a drug dealer, which that should happen instantly. I don't disagree with that. What should happen instantly is when you understand the situation behind it, okay, that makes sense.
Any parent would have done what I did.
We're going to remove the charges.
Yeah.
But when you have a politician that gets up, and the double standard, right? They went out of their way to lock down Trump off of Twitter on January 6th. There's clear evidence today that there were plants inside of that crowd to incite violence.
Yeah.
And, they dropped the whole law to the letter of the law on the individuals that were involved in January 6th. Trump didn't say go put a bullet in their head, right? He didn't say go attack, and if you're not
go shoot up businesses. No.
The other side is saying this, but because they have really taxpayer dollars that have circled through USAID to these non-government organizations and entities that circling back in, they've got corrupt lawyers, they've got the money, they've got corrupt judges. You want to get into this right district, and then you're treated to a different standard than the other individual. And that's just a sign of the degradation of our society, because we should demand as individuals on both sides truth and justice for all, not a double standard.
Okay, you love me, and I know you love me. I have no doubt you love me. Okay, if I'm a small businesswoman and I'm starting something that I tell you I'm gonna do good for the community, you would give me $100, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would.
And I would start my venture. Okay, there's a person in Georgia. Her name is Stacey Abrams. She had $100 in a business investment that somebody had given her. But then Joe Biden gave her $2 billion.
Yeah.
Now, they're about to make her accountable for the $2 billion. She was supposed to put, was it heat and air or something to help a few homes? They said she would have to spend so many million per home to have, so they're going to make her accountable. It is time that we are accountable.
Oh, yeah.
If I ask, every year, Bob Reese, my dear friend, comes on here and we ask you to give us money for the foster children that he has raised money for over 36 years to buy Christmas for foster kids in Cherokee County. He is accountable. He will show you where every single dime went. He will show you every child that ever benefited from this. He is accountable. We have allowed, and we've allowed it because we keep voting in these nuts. And if anybody, I'm honest, I wouldn't cheat anybody. I wouldn't, if I told you give me $100, I'm going to do so-and-so. Actually, one time you gave me a large amount of money and it went to Bob Reese. Do you remember that?
No.
You did. You gave me a very nice donation, and that year we helped 230-something kids. This year,
now.
Yes, you
right.
do.
Yeah,
this year it was over 700 kids.
No kid.
In today's world, in today's economy, during the administrations that we have seen fail, we have more kids in foster care. We have more people unemployed. And I will say a lot of unemployed people are unemployed because they are part of a system where, well, Mom and Granny got a check, and Aunt so-and-so got a check, and so-and-so got a check. They didn't ever have to go to work, and I get food stamps. Well, no, I'm sorry. So, but we have not made anybody accountable.
No.
We've not made anybody accountable. We've not said, Nancy Pelosi, you cannot play the market on the tips you get while you're sitting there.
Right.
You cannot do that. And when we saw the wealth where her husband and Dianne Feinstein's husband did what they did in California, holy cow, those are chargeable offenses.
They are.
They're chargeable offenses. Nobody's done anything about it.
No.
Do you know what their net worth is?
Oh, yeah. Well, I can't remember exactly.
Oh, my gosh. Like 49 million? I mean, it's crazy.
I think it's more than that.
Well,
It's
probably
more than,
is.
it's like 149 million.
Okay, so I was just off 100 million. It's crazy that we have allowed this to happen.
Right.
And we did, because we kept going to the polls and we kept voting for people that we weren't sure of. And it's like last night, that judgeship in Wisconsin. I'm sure a lot of nice people voted for her because, well, she's been our judge for a while, so
Right.
we're going to keep her in there. Well, and my son went before her, and he didn't go to prison for but 15 years instead of 40, you know.
Right.
So there are reasons that people do things, sometimes for our own benefit, sometimes because we're uninformed. And
Right.
I think America is the most uninformed it's ever been.
Well, they're the most uninformed because the media has taken advantage of a legacy of trust, and then they've slowly eroded that trust, and the average American doesn't have access to anything else. I mean, I will tell you, I was having a conversation with somebody today. They were like, "Did you hear about this?" And I said, "Yeah, a month ago." And they're like, "How'd you hear about it?" I said, on Twitter, which is now X. And I said, that's the only free speech platform that's left out there. Everything else is throttled in some manner whatsoever.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, there's idiots on X. I mean,
Yeah.
there's idiot. I always tell my kids in high school, there's always idiots. I
Yeah.
mean, we're
Yeah.
I've been an idiot at
Yeah.
several
Yeah.
components in my life in the
Yeah.
past, right? We're all there at one point or another, and people are deceived, but you need the information out there, and there needs to be debate, because the truth will stand when nothing else will. But lies, they're like little morsels. They're like candy, right? Little kids want to eat candy all the time. Adults want to hear those lies all the time because it tells them what they want to hear. And we need to get back to loving the truth. And if we don't, there's going to be enough pain generated that the pain of changing will be easier than the pain of staying the same. But it could be for generations, right? And then we'll love that truth again. And the truth matters more than anything else in our own lives, in the lives of our society, and all of us, when we've been blinded to our own situation. You know, the people that care the most about us will tell us the truth. And that truth hurts, and we don't want to hear it, but if we're willing to accept it and we love the truth, we'll find a better path than we will, because those lies are going to lead us into destruction. Lies are unsustainable. It's like the, what is it, the Three Little Piggies, you know, with the house of straw versus the house
bricks,
of brick, and or
mud. What mud?
straw, mud, and brick. I haven't thought about that in a long time. It's a
Yeah,
bad
yeah.
thing about live
We hadn't
TV.
done that with kids.
I'll have a thought come into my mind. I'm like, well, I know enough about it to go forward. So
Be dangerous, yeah. Well, when we look at, seriously, you're a financial guy. People trust you. You have earned their trust. You've earned their trust.
and I have to continue to earn that.
You have earned their trust. Okay, if I come to you and I need to start this foundation, and you trust me with $2 billion, are you going to make me accountable?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I mean,
Are we going to pull her out and make her accountable? We better.
we should.
We better.
Not only should we make her accountable, but we should make the writer of the check to her accountable.
Exactly.
And
Exactly. Do you know what? Oh, I'm going to get in trouble, but whatever. She was given, in my opinion, $2 billion because she controls a certain vote in Georgia.
absolutely.
The vote was purchased. The vote was purchased. She was given $2 billion to get out and to campaign against Governor Kemp, to campaign against this one, campaign against this one, and this one. There are 2 Democrat congressmen that better go to the House this time. And we're going to have to work hard in Georgia to get those 2 Democrats to go to the House, because they have done nothing for the state of Georgia. However, they have helped themselves immensely.
Oh, yeah.
And we have until the next election to get our act together and go conservative and say, it is time you boys went home. We've made you enough money in this first term you were in, and we need to send you away now. But the sad thing is, they're going to get, is it 1 term they get a pension, or do they have to go 2 terms to get a pension?
I don't know the answer to that.
Well, you know, sadly, I would pay, there's 4 females, I'm not even going to say ladies, 4 females in Congress that I would be happy to give them their pension and give them their walking papers.
Yeah.
But it takes getting together and saying what you believe and following through.
Right.
And if you had given me $2 billion and I had done nothing with it and I couldn't account for it, I can bet you wouldn't give me any more money, would you?
No, as much as I love you,
You wouldn't do it.
this is what I would do, because right is right. If I had the money to give you $2 billion and you used it frivolously, I would demand accountability. And if I couldn't get it, I would rent the front page of every paper in every area that you ever went, and I would make sure that every person knew that you were untrustworthy.
Exactly.
So that nobody else gave you money.
Exactly.
And that's just the right thing to do.
And there haven't been any, there's been no other contributions to what she's doing.
Right.
The $100, and then Biden sent her $2 billion, and I'm not saying million, I'm not saying 100,000, y'all, this is billion.
Billions is huge. I'd have to do some math on that to look at it, but most people don't understand how much money that is. That's a huge amount of money. Huge. And that's the problem with today is
and that's one of many problems that Doge has found.
Well,
many problems.
That's one of many, but when you take that, what's bad about this is every one of you that are out there, okay, should be enraged about this.
Oh yeah.
Because you have made sacrifices to pay your taxes. You have done without, because you know most of us agree that there are things we want: roads, we want infrastructure, we want law enforcement officers, we want a structure of the government to be in place to protect us, right? To pay judges so that they're not influenced by individuals, that when we go before a judge, that they don't care whether we're Republican or Democrat, blue hair, pink hair, shaved hair, whatever. The truth is what matters the most, and justice is delivered regardless. That's what the government infrastructure is there, and that's what we pay taxes for. It is criminal, and it is evil, and it is deceptive when our taxpayer dollars are being funneled through organizations back to individuals and weaponized against us for political purposes. That is evil.
That is evil.
That is evil, and it is deceptive.
And I will tell you, and not to get too detailed because this is public record, but I'm not going to get too detailed. 50 years ago, I've always had a lot of gumption, and I went up against something that was really, really tough. But I was right and they were wrong. I was right and they were wrong. And I kept watching, and I kept watching some abuse and some things that, So I ended up facing somebody in court, and I won. And afterwards, the judge looked at me and said, do you know, because I chose a judge to hear the case, not a jury. And the judge said, do you know how hard it was for me to rule in your favor against who you were fighting? I said, yes, sir, I do, and I respect you for that. That's probably, and then Richard Neville, there were two judges in our circuit that I loved, I trusted, I honored them.
They had demonstrated that
they earned
loved justice.
They
and
earned
truth.
it.
Yes, they earned that respect.
And if I'll tell you later who I was up against. Nobody believed I would win this case, and I did. And it was just me. It was just me. And it was actually 52 years ago. And he was a wonderful judge, and he ruled by the letter of the law. And it didn't matter emotion, it didn't matter. And I actually think he was a Democrat, now that I think about it. But
well, Ed Jenkins was, and he was one of the best men that I knew.
Absolutely.
But he was a Democrat for labor.
Yes,
For the average
and the same
individual.
Democrat my grandmother and my great-grandmother was, same time frame. So, but when I think about that case, I knew going up against him, I knew him as a person. I knew that he would do the right thing. And that's what's happening. We are trusting people that we don't really know, and we're trusting them with our vote. And then we're letting them get in there. And when I think about the two congressmen in Georgia that everybody said, oh, we need a change, we need this, we need that. They have done nothing for Georgia. Zero.
Ossoff and Warnock need to be removed from office.
Absolutely, absolutely. And they have done absolutely nothing for the state of Georgia. They have padded their pockets, that's it. But we have been served by many great people. And I want to throw out something. Rick Jaspers from Jasper, is just a good old country boy. And he does, if he tells you he's going to do something, he's going to do it. He's going to do it. And I would go to court with him because he's one of those that he won't tell you what you want to hear. He'll tell you the truth. That's what we need in the political arena. We don't have that anymore.
No.
We don't have that anymore. And if I have to see that Nancy Pelosi walk down the hall in them little shoes and clip, 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 clip one more time, it drives me crazy because I can't answer. I can't talk to you about that. And I'm like, you know what? You got filthy rich by taking advantage of America.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
she did.
Absolutely.
And they continued to vote her in.
Right.
Okay. How do we stop this?
It starts at the local level.
Local level.
It starts here
Local
locally,
level.
and we elect local political leaders and local leaders not because they have a silver tongue and not because they tell us what they want to hear, but we elect them because they have the ability to communicate to both sides. Okay, and let's just take an example. There are people who have moved in here and they enjoy the quality of life in our area and they want to shut the doors behind them. And then there's people that want to absolutely just open everything up and build a house on every single corner. Both may be wrong, right? So we need political leaders that have the willingness to speak against the 10% on this side and speak against the 10% on this side and lead to a compromise that is good for all, okay? Because if we don't control our growth in this area, then we're going to have issues.
Sure.
And if we shut
Well,
the
Jasper is a perfect example. Water issues.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's something that should have been dealt with a long time ago, right? And it's not going to be dealt with instantly, but we need to deal with it now. So we need plans for the future. We need communication to the public. We need to have leaders that are pointing out the pluses and minuses of each and have the courage to tell the truth and speak their mind. And if they don't get reelected, they don't get reelected, right? And as a populace, we need to have good debate and conversation, not screaming and yelling at people, not threats, but we work to a better good together. Now, that may be ideal, right? But if we don't strive for the ideal, what are we going to strive for? Okay, I always tell my kids, reach for the stars. You may not, you can't literally reach up there and grab one, but if you don't set your mind to try to be the best that you can be, you'll never have a chance of being the best that you can be. So we have to start it here. Unfortunately, we have to be informed. We have to take the time to do the research. We have to listen to both sides. One thing I do is I don't trust the right side media to give me the full, if I hear a clip, I take the time to go find, because it's easy to find today, and I listen to the whole clip because now you got the context.
Yeah.
So I listen to both sides. And that's why, there are some things I can agree with your opponents. And sometimes your opponents point out your weaknesses better than anybody else does.
Yeah, and they make you look at you and say, okay, I need to change that. Yeah.
Okay, they're right. I can change that a little bit. But we have to become involved. And unfortunately, there's going to be good people that are going to have to make sacrifices for the betterment of their future, for the betterment of their kids and their grandkids. And, I hope one day that I have grandkids. I want them to have a better society and a better foundation and more wisdom than I had at young ages, so that they can build a better future for themselves, their families, their communities, and our society. We have to set our minds for that. Now, in my opinion, the only author of truth is Christ and the Bible and the Word that's in there. And Proverbs will teach you everything that you need about life. And if those of you out there that have never read the book of Proverbs, please read it. I challenge you to read it, and call me if you don't have any wisdom, if there's nothing in there that doesn't apply to your life to help you choose a better path, then call me and by all means share it with me. Because I can guarantee there's in Proverbs somewhere, and that's just one book of the Bible, not counting the rest, there's something that will light a better path for you, a more sustainable path. And that's what we have to do. We have a responsibility individually. We are citizens of this country. We are citizens of this community to stand up for the truth and help those that are deceived to see the truth in love and not let your emotions control you. right? Because your emotions can drive you wrong, right?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm gonna ask you a question. Then I'm gonna show some pictures. Then we're gonna come back from a commercial break. Then I'm gonna ask you why. I'm gonna tell you why I ask you this question. Okay. In today's world, 52 years ago, when I chose to do what I did, I chose a judge, not a jury trial. Okay. If in today's world, knowing what you know, if you and Holly were getting a divorce after how many years have y'all been married?
28, 1997 to this year. So how many years is that? 28 this year.
Okay. You've built life, wealth, happiness, health together.
Yes.
Together. And
yes,
I know
together.
you well enough to know that together, everything you have, you did together.
Yeah.
If in today's world, all that was going to go away because Holly got a PhD, she decided she was smarter than you, and she was going to get a divorce.
Right.
Would you want a jury or would you want a judge to make the decision on the rest of your life from the past of your life? Who would you trust the most? And don't tell me now, you think about it. But right now I want to show you some photos of things that are going on and remind you of some events that are going to be happening in the communities that we serve. In Turtletown and Ducktown area, guess what? April the 5th, great music at Kimsey Ridge. Please be there. Our little Trace will be there, and I plan to be there. And I took that picture of the Kaler family. Is that not sweet? It's going to be a great night of fun and fellowship and music, and we hope that you will be there at Kimsey Ridge. This is the old Ducktown School that is being remodeled. It is absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. I'm so thankful that this gentleman bit the bullet. And I don't know where he got the first $150,000 he spent on this place, but he took a risk, and I'm so proud of him, and I hope that they do well, and it's just a really good night of music. So please come and be with us. And all day long, Ball Ground is going to be rocking, and I'll tell you what it's going to be rocking. It's going to be rocking music and great food, great crafts and different items to buy and sell all day Saturday in Ball Ground, and then the end of the day, great music. This promoter, Gary, brings in fantastic music. There will be great music there. It's a free event for y'all to come and spend time, enjoy, but get in line at the Bacon on a Stick. I don't care how long that line is, it is worth standing in line. It's just one piece of bacon, and Lord have mercy, it is so good. So you need to do that. That's like, I've only had it one time, but now I've been saying, is it time for that woman to come back to town? Is it time? And somebody in Ball Ground loves you, and we would love for you to come and visit Ball Ground and get your picture made outside our office, VPR Real Estate. We're next door to Dot's Wine and Craft Beer, beautiful place in downtown Ball Ground. And Evelyn has set up a little photo session so you can go in there with your friends and your buddies and take pictures at the photo booth. So do that, come down to Ball Ground and visit us. And don't forget, Ball Ground is open for business every day. Now that is my first fresh green beans of the year. Do you think I grew those, Paul? Do those look like something I grew? No, a farmer in Waynesville, North Carolina did.
I was going to say, you could have grown those.
Not in this weather, but I got them fresh in Waynesville, North Carolina. That's my first beans to string. And I can tell you they weren't quite big enough because they weren't stringing good. And this is a meal from Clyde's Restaurant. I want to encourage y'all to take a daycation right up in the Carolinas. We went through Ellijay, which is a little town just outside Bryson City. I had 2 places in Ellijay. And boy, you talk about a financial disaster. I didn't have insurance on either one of them, and thank goodness I had sold them. The whole community was wiped out by the storm. The whole community. And I think about, I had 2 places up there, and they were paid for, and I didn't owe anything on them, but I would have lost everything because I didn't insure them with flood insurance. The flood insurance, that area has been hit so hard. So if you haven't been to Waynesville, to Bryson City, to Ellijay, to Cherokee, go up there and spend a little bit of money and help those people out that are trying to get their businesses going again. Now, Clyde's Restaurant didn't get hit, and they didn't have any damage, but they've been in business over 60 years, and I can tell you it might be my very favorite place to go. So Clyde's Restaurant, been in business over 60 years, And actually, the lady I went up against in court is the person who taught me about this.
Really?
Because we ended up being friends for over 50 years after that happened.
After that happened?
So it has a great ending. It has
You
a great ending.
stood up to a bully and they respected you on the other side.
I did indeed, and we were friends for over 50 years. So yeah, it is kind of standing your ground, you know? And it's something I used to do well. I got weak at points, but most of the time I stand my ground. That is their coconut cream pie, and I might tell you, it is beyond yummy. So
is that bacon on the top of that?
No, it's coconut that's been browned.
Okay,
you know,
gotcha.
But it's so good. So y'all go out and support these businesses. And then this is Malone's Pond. This is so crazy. I don't know. I wish I could identify. Last year we had mom and dad geese, and they had babies, and the babies grew up there. And they left, 6 of them left, and now 6 came back this year. Do you think it's the same geese?
I would think it is.
Well,
when we were on the pond, you know, they would continue
6
to
came
come
back. And this is a place I want y'all to think about going to visit. It's 2.5 hours from here. But it's the Museum of Appalachia in Clinton, Tennessee. And it is one of those things, you talk about going back to the past. Because we look at our lives today and sometimes we whine and bellyache and think, well, we don't have this. Listen, y'all. We've got it made, but what we should think about is we should learn from those who didn't have it made. How did they live? How did they grow wealth? How did they become, you know, we look in Ellijay. There are a lot of people who grew up here in these mountains who started with nothing. And I know a gentleman that y'all see on here all the time. He started with nothing. His family had nothing. And he grew wealth because he worked 4 jobs at a time. So we learn to respect those who don't want to stay in the rut, in the dumps, you know, happy with nothing. We enjoy seeing somebody who succeeds because they work hard.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we should do, because the folks of Appalachia, nobody worked any harder. This is my favorite spring picture.
No, that's great.
Is that not the cutest thing in the world? And now she's my baby, but if I were near that thing, I can't breathe today because of all the pollen. So can you imagine me blowing that thing in my face? Are you kidding? But there is our Xana Jordan, and that is my favorite spring picture. Spring is here, and then summer will be here, and then before you know it, you know what? It'll be fall again.
It sure will be, won't it?
It is so weird how time goes so fast. Now, we're going to take a commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to find out, what would Paul want? 12 people to make your decision, or 1 judge? Would you trust the judge? We'll see.
Whether you're in the mood for chicken strips, a delicious burger, our classic banana split, or an upside-down thick blizzard treat, we've got you covered. Hot and fresh food every day, every time. And delicious DQ soft serve make the perfect pair at your favorite place. Not fast food, fan food fast. Your Blue Ridge, Ellijay, and Jasper Dairy Queens are your meet, eat, and treat headquarters.
Thank you for choosing DQ. How may I serve you?
Elmer loves to giggle. Elmer's mommy taught him that laughing can help when you have a big feeling, like when you feel happy. Make sure to celebrate when you're happy and laugh it out. Love your mind.
Welcome to our ETC Game of the Week. From McDaniel. That one is poked out in the eye. Oh,
that one hits him in the head.
From Chris. That one.
3-2. Good lick.
can.
Whether you're swimming in the sea or splashing in the pool, making a masterpiece, or just making memories, writing a great American novel, or writing your term paper that's due tomorrow. Whatever you do in life, Farmers is here to protect it. For all your insurance needs, call Donald Curtis in Blue Ridge.
Okay, knowing what we know about today's world and the people who vote, and a lot of people who vote end up being on juries. I was on a jury a couple of years ago, and we all agreed, except one person on that jury, and that one person could have thrown this case into a cyclone. But we made her listen to our reasoning. That's something we're missing in today's world.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So if Holly comes in and she says, Paul, we've been married 30 years, and I know we started in a double wide, but you know, I'm tired of you. You're just getting old, and I'm tired of you, and I want a divorce. Okay, if you'd been married before and you had a couple of kids, this is how women's minds think. I'm a woman, I know. Okay, Holly says, you know, in her mind, she's thinking, well, he's getting older, I'm getting older. He's got those kids from that other marriage. If he were to die today, those other kids would get part of the estate. But if I divorce him today, I get 50% of what he's got, and those other kids aren't part of the game plan. Okay, who are you going to go with? You going to go with a jury or a judge?
That's a really good question.
Who are you going to go with?
Now, she just threw a zinger at me right there.
Can you imagine Holly walking in and telling you she wanted a divorce? No.
I hope not.
Never.
But, I mean, I do work a lot, and I'm a little stubborn, so.
Yeah.
But, yeah, now, for me, I have to answer it a couple of ways. One, I'll answer the reality in today's society. If that happened, it would break my heart. But we've been partners for a long time. What I have seen with individuals that go through divorces, they get attorneys involved, attorneys create motions, and the only one that really wins is the attorney.
Exactly.
Okay?
Exactly.
I just split it down the middle and get over the heartbreak because, you know, that's bad, but, you know, what wealth comes and goes quickly. Now, if it was an affair, I would try my best to fight not having to pay alimony and all that stuff.
Sure.
Because I think that is true and just. But if now that you've thrown the zinger under that circumstance, see, I've been sitting here thinking about answering it, and then she threw me a good zinger.
Yeah.
Would I want to go to a jury? It depends on where we are. If we're in a community that loves truth, which I would like to think that this local community does love truth.
Well, I thought Cherokee County was that way, and I thought we would all think alike. But once I was on a jury, I realized we didn't all think alike.
Well, I have heard in Cherokee County that it's a lot different. You've got a lot of the woke ideology that comes in. And if there's a huge woke ideology in the community, there's people that are going to hate a man just because he's a man.
Sure.
And they're going to go. So I wouldn't want to go to a jury trial there.
Yeah.
If it was in the Gilmer County area, one, I wouldn't go to a jury trial unless because it's just too expensive. And what else are you going to do? In today's society, they're going to split it 50-50.
Right.
If there was an honest judge, and we have a couple of around here that I know to be true and stand up for the truth,
Right.
I would go to the judge over a jury.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, especially in a divorce.
Because I think a jury gets so emotional. I know by the time
Yeah.
we left the trial, I was ready to choke this guy. And I didn't even know that he had an 18-page rap sheet. I just knew what I witnessed him do.
Yeah.
And so it's emotional for a jury. It's
Right.
very emotional. But I was honored to serve on a jury, and I would do it again, and I would think, and I would use my brain, and I would analyze, and I would do. But if you can get a judge who goes by the letter of the law.
Right. If you have a judge that goes by the letter of the law.
Yeah.
And is not influenced by relationship. You know, just because I've been in the community and carry a good reputation doesn't mean that I should be treated different in the law than another person. Right.
Right.
You should be treated fairly under the law, because that can help me in certain circumstances when somebody looks at it like, okay, you're you are in the good old boy network. I'm not, but you're in the good old boy network, so we're going to tear you down, right? It needs to be by the letter of the law.
Yeah, yeah. And I would choose a judge.
Yeah.
I would choose a judge, because and even seeing that goofy Democrat that has just nailed all this stuff, trying to stop the deportation and do all these crazy things, that judge should not be allowed to do that. And legally he is not allowed to do it, but he's done it. And so they're working on getting that straightened out. So, you know, I think in this area I would feel much more comfortable with a judge. Now, if I went to Fulton County, and I will tell you, boy, y'all are going to think we're criminals, but we're not. My husband was in a trial in Fulton County, and Fulton County has different dynamics than we have.
Right.
I'll just say that. And he was the only one like him in the courtroom. I'll just say that. And so he lost the initial trial, but it was overturned on an appeal because he was the only one like him in the jury, in the courtroom. He's the only one, and it cost us $60,000 to overturn it, but it was overturned. And so the jury was not like my husband at all, and the other defendant was like the jury, and that's the best way I know to describe it. And so my husband lost that case, and then I just looked at the attorney and said, how much more do I need to pay you? And he said, we'll start with $35,000. So I wrote him a check for $35,000. When you're getting a divorce, and I don't understand, I'm one of those, I'm in love, and I'm in love, and I'm loyal, and I'm all of that. I know you and Holly are all of that. But I have seen, whether it be menopause or craziness or an affair,
Right.
or I have seen, and somebody that I dearly, dearly loved, his wife walked away as he became in the battle of his life for a health issue.
Right.
And I had a hard time with that, because my grandmother stayed as my grandfather died from multiple sclerosis. She waited on him, took care of him, fed him every day of his life until he died. That's what I believe marriage is about. And I believe that if you are loyal and honest and good, then God will bless that.
Right.
And if you are deceitful and whatever, for whatever reason, but I know another family who, she got to doing the math, and there were other children involved, and if she stays until he dies, even though they've been married forever and ever and ever, and she has lived the life of a princess, an absolute princess, she decides it's time, because those other kids are going to get something if he dies. But if I do it now, I'm going to get 50%.
Right.
How does a judge even look at that? You know, and so I'm like, there was no reasoning for this. There was no, so how do you deal with it? How do you emotionally, when somebody walks in and says, I want a divorce, and you're going, what?
Well, I mean,
what? And it happens.
Yeah,
it happens.
I mean,
it happens.
I've seen it happen a lot. Now, I mean, from my standpoint,
I don't understand it. I just can't understand why it's not forever, till death do us part. Better or worse, sickness and health.
No.
What happened to that?
No, well, I mean, again, it's just the degradation of society, right? Our bond and our word, and you know, and we're all human, and we all struggle with things, and sometimes the grass looks greener on the other side. But if you live long enough and you have enough wisdom, you realize grass might look greener, but it's just another bag of problems, right? So
I know somebody, you know him too, and if you listen to his music, you'll know that he's made a bunch of mistakes, and he writes music about it. and there's going to be a music writers event here in Gilmer County in the first week of May, and I laughed because I said, you can hear his music and you know exactly what woman that song is about.
That's funny.
So if you're a good writer, you might make a living writing songs about your exes. So
that's good. So,
yeah.
Well, the first thing I would say is if you're going into a second marriage, then I would throw everything into a trust and have a prenup. Right? I mean, part of my estate plan was if something happened to me when Holly was younger, is everything goes into a trust, because I got to look at it two ways. I'm gone. She'd be a single
And
mom.
you've got children.
Raising 3 greatly A+ personality kids. And, you know, if she's 40 years old, she's probably going to get married again. I would hope that the family merges well, and stepdad's going to be good to my kids and she'd be good to their kids.
But prepare for that.
But whatever we accumulated together, I would want to go into an irrevocable trust. She can have income off of it, buy a house with it, whatever they want to do. But at her passing, it goes to my kids. Or if they end up in divorce, then those assets are not subject to be taken. So that could have been dealt with going into the second marriage, and just have a trust established, a prenuptial agreement. And if somebody's not willing to marry you over a prenuptial agreement, then you need to question their motives. I mean, I understand them being upset about it, but one thing we know is
plan ahead.
Yeah, you just got to plan ahead.
And don't put all your money in there and trust somebody, because one day they're honest and trustworthy and the next day not so much.
Right. The prudent Proverbs here tells us.
There you go.
It tells us twice, and I don't believe God wastes space in the Bible. If it tells us twice for something, that's like, hey, knucklehead, listen.
Yeah.
The prudent foresee danger and hide themselves, while the simple pass on or judge for it. So, you know, love's not just an emotion. Okay, love is a choice. And I look at like my Uncle Charles. My Aunt Connie had Parkinson's, and Uncle Charles has always been just good to me over the years, like a good example. And to see how he cared for my Aunt Connie and the sacrifices that he made in his own dreams to make sure she had the best care and to take care of her and do it himself was the greatest act of love that I've seen within a family in my lifetime. And, you know, but that's a choice, right? It's not an emotion. The problem in today's society is it teaches us that emotions are great, right? We enjoy the exhilaration of something new, the adrenaline rush of doing, you know, I used to be an adrenaline junkie. I don't bounce as good as I used to, but, you know, you do something that's kind of dangerous and you get that adrenaline rush. That's an emotion.
Yeah.
And people get caught up in the lust of a relationship initially, and they think that's love. And love is an action, right? I mean, Holly's in menopause. I mean, I know we went through.
It's tough. It's tough because, I'll just be honest, once certain things are gone, you know, I told you I worried because I cried a lot when Angela died.
Oh, God.
Now I don't cry, and I'm like, that is so weird to me. And it takes.
But it's normal.
I guess.
I guess,
but it's weird.
It's grief.
But it's so crazy because we look at, I would think you and Holly will be forever.
I hope so.
I would think that you have a good
That's my plan.
you have a good example in family members, but not so much your direct family. And when you've seen bitterness and divorce and anger and things like that, you want to stay away from that. And so I would think y'all would negotiate and you would sit down and you would talk before it got so bad.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean,
I think that's what people need to do. If you see something going wrong, then just, hey, what's up? What's up with you? What's up? Is there something we need to talk about?
In my own experience, you know, that was, my parents got divorced when I was in high school, and it was World War III for pretty much my whole high school career. And it went to a jury trial in town and mud slung everywhere. And I mean, there was a point where there was a friend that I used to go to their house, and he's like, hey, you know, my parents really don't want me hanging around you anymore.
Yeah.
And I see the damage that the hatred towards each other inflicted upon me and my sister and the household.
And they're still the two people who raise these two kids.
Yeah.
Why can't they just do it nicely?
But I mean, you understand the emotions of that, right? There's pain and there's hurt and there's, but that's why, like, Holly and I taught them, like, I think years 16 and 17 was probably the hardest period of time that we had in our marriage. And I remember getting down on my knees, like, and she wasn't running around on me. I wasn't her. It's just our kids were hard to deal with at the time. I mean, like, teenagers are hard to raise if you're trying to do it right. I mean, and if you care more about raising them in the right direction.
I started to say, no, and you're going to stand your ground and you're going to do it right.
Well, as best I can. I can't tell you how many times I'd go in there and I would absolutely light into the kids over something, you know, and I'd give them a lecture, and I'd walk in the bedroom thinking, hey, I did pretty good, and Holly'd close the door and she would chew me out.
I love it.
And I would sit there and I'd be so humiliated. I'd be like, oh, she, you know.
I didn't do that
I mean,
right.
like I didn't say, I'd be like, I would think I said, Kel, if you continue down this path, you know, you're going to be a, you know, blah, 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 whatever.
Unemployed,
you know.
be scrapped.
You know, and I would think if you continue down this path, you know, and Holly's like, you called him a whatever. And I'm like, no, I didn't. She's like, yes, you did. You get up there and go fix that. So to this day, my kids make fun of me.
Yeah.
Because, you know, usually 15, 20 minutes later, Holly would get a hold of me. And I'd go up there and knock on the door and be like, hey, you know, I love you. You know, you're not going to be a vagrant for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You know, and it would make, especially my daughter, it'd make her so mad.
Yeah.
And so
Well, Daddy, why did you say that? Why did you say that? Well, in the moment of anger.
Yeah, I mean, there was constant conflict in the
It's
house
tough.
with the
It's
kids, and the
tough.
kids are driving wedges between us. And I remember getting on my knees one day, and I'm like, okay, Lord, I made a commitment. I can't ever imagine this getting fun or better. But, you know, just help me to stay the path, do what's right, keep my bind. Because I love Holly. But the conflict in the family at the time, not necessarily between us, just raising kids, it's hard.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
And you
And
think
then-
about that today, y'all are empty nesters.
Oh, I know.
You're empty nesters.
And then on the other side of that, it was like, man, this is far better than anything that I've ever imagined in my life. You know, so now you've been through that period where you understand, yeah, it might be a little dark today. That's life, and you got to fight off bitterness and anger and forgive each other because we all make mistakes, and then it's better and your relationship's closer. And my Uncle Ben gave us great advice when we were
I
younger.
love him. I was watching the show he was on last year or so, and I love him.
I do
He's such
too.
a good guy.
And I'll tell this in a marriage, and this is one of the things that I told my kids. And this is one thing I've learned. I didn't understand the wisdom of what Uncle Ben was saying at the time. He said, if you keep your eyes on the Lord, because we're here. Okay, I see the TV there. So you're here. I keep my eyes on the Lord. Holly keep her eyes on the Lord. As we work towards Him, we grow closer together. Well, the wisdom in that is if I need her for my affirmation and she needs me for her affirmation, don't get me wrong, we need that at times, right? But if I need that, well, we're human. I'm going to let her down. Like if I've had, you know, all of us have to deal with those really tough clients from time to time, and I've just had like a mentally exhausting day, and I come home and she's wanting to chat, and I'm talked out, and I bark at her over something, and she gets that bitterness, well, I've let her down. But if we keep our eyes on the Lord, well, you know, I can forgive that, and let's have a conversation about it, and let's say, this is, you hurt my feelings here, and then you're communicating together. Conflict makes us closer. But most people, unfortunately, don't either have the mentorship in their life, like I did through Uncle Ben and watching Uncle Charles take care of Connie, or understand, see the pain of some of the bad things that happen, because we want to learn from other people's mistakes and our own and others as best we can. You don't fight through that conflict to get the benefit of the blessing on the other side, because God rewards us for that discipline. And this is why I tell people, you know, we don't have time to get into it today, but we need to go through some economic pain in the country.
And we're about to a little bit.
For the long-term benefit. So
we're excited about what's happening in the country. We're excited. And I got to read you this, and this is something I want you to take home and think about. A healthy man will make an effort to change if he's hurting you. So if you were doing something to hurt Holly, you would make an effort to change.
Absolutely.
A toxic man will ask, why do you stay if it's so bad?
Oh, that's really good.
Is that not awesome?
Now,
because we
is
all do
awesome.
something to make somebody mad. But
well, and here's the thing that I'll say. I'm blessed because Holly and I both want to do what's right before the Lord. We all fail and we stumble and time to times, you know, but it's more like, I'm going to love you through this to be better, and we're going to communicate. There are relationships. Now, if Holly'd been the type that just absolutely refused, she gave in to bitterness, and all she could do is focus on the negative parts of my personality, then we wouldn't have made it.
the vows wouldn't have
right?
mattered.
I mean,
yeah.
so the vows wouldn't have mattered. I mean, would they? I don't know. So I know there's a lot of marriages that there are people that do everything that they can and they end in divorce, and you have to make those decisions. I mean, my mother married a guy on the other side, didn't know that he was an alcoholic. He got into alcoholism, refused to change from his ways, and she laid the law down, ended up in a divorce.
Yeah, sure.
He couldn't overcome that for the relationship. So there are times where it's appropriate. But there's a lot of times too, I think, where people give up too early because
Yep.
they can't see that on the other side of that conflict
Yep.
it'll be good.
Yep.
So
Yep. Well, today we didn't talk economics. We talked life.
we did.
And you know, I think sometimes we need a life's lesson.
Right.
We need a life's lesson. And to you and Holly, I think y'all are forever together.
I pray so.
I see that you're growing, seeing you out playing in the dirt again, and just, you know, enjoying life. Yeah, that's what it's about. That's what it's about. We hope that you enjoy some life today, and we hope that if you have money to invest, you pick up the phone and you say, Paul Kiker, I hear you on TV all the time. What can you do to help me grow my wealth?
Come kick our tires. Come
That's
kick our
right.
tires.
That's right.
Ask me any question. You're not going to hurt my feelings, and you're not going to offend me. And if it's not appropriate to do business, that's fine. But I can say with confidence that a conversation, whether we do business or not, I'll share some information that'll grant you wisdom for the path ahead.
That's right.
26 years, I've been through 2 major market collapses and one of the most tumultuous periods of time. I've got these gray hairs and lack of hair for a reason.
Yeah, there's a reason. There's a reason. All right, y'all, we'll see you again on ETC. And don't forget, go to YouTube, subscribe. We're putting a lot of really cool old programs on there that I think you're going to enjoy. Bye, y'all.